Hello, my friends. How are y'all doing out there today? Hope that you are having a good day, as good as we can have in the Donald Trump administration, of course, as Donald Trump continues to steer the country towards a recession, if not depression, through his absolutely pointless and useless trade wars. And I get called out a lot, my friends. People go, how dare you? How dare you say that Donald Trump has started pointless trade wars? He knows what he's doing. And then, my friends, yesterday happened where Donald Trump had teased a big announcement about how we were going to have a major deal that everybody needed to know about. And then when the major deal happened, Donald Trump presented absolutely pointless and useless trade war to us made between the United States and the UK. And that trade agreement that was made started off at a 10% tariff and ended at, you guessed it, a 10% tariff, except on luxury cars. So good job. All the rich people out there can get their Rolls Royces tariff-free, while us peasants will still have tariffs in place, while we just try to survive the absolute nightmare that Donald Trump is creating for us. And you know what? That's not much of a shocker now, is it? The president that has enriched himself through a meme coin coming into this presidency, the president that uses tariffs to manipulate the market and goes on camera and tells the inside investors the right time to buy into the stock market, and has also decided to ration the amount of dolls and pencils that everyday Americans can have. It's not shocking to me that he's not looking out for the American people. And a lot of people ask me, how is it that you're from the country, you're raised in the country around the Republicans, and you've always been against the Republicans? Well, the reason, my friends, is because they've always been doing shit like this. I am lucky enough, which is the premise of this video, to have worldwide viewers, and I have a viewer that appears to be from China, but I have not asked them specifically. They type in a language that appears to be Chinese to me. Look, I'm just a dumb redneck from America, okay? When I push the Google Translate button, though, it translates pretty well. And they have been educating me a lot on what's going on out there in the world. And you know what? That's what a lot of Americans need to do. Instead of sitting here listening to right-wing media poison your fucking brain, maybe step outside your comfort zone. Say some things that maybe you're not quite sure of. And you'll be surprised to hear that a lot of people in the world are happy to tell you what's going on out there. And this person told me a very cool thing about China. We're getting back to me being against the Republicans, but you have to hear this part of the story first. I had mentioned in a video that recently China started investing in their workforce, technology, training, the infrastructure, all these things, when I was actually corrected and told that no, that's not actually true. It's not a recent thing. 40 years ago, China started investing in all these things because they had a vision for the future and wanted to be dominant in certain sectors on the world stage. So when you ask me why I'm against Republicans, well, for the last 40 years in America, Republicans have adamantly been against the working class of America, because I remember when I was just a young lad out in the country there, Ronald Reagan was talking about trickle-down economics. And my friends, the way trickle-down economics works is the rich people get so rich, just so filthy rich, that they just don't have any more room for that money, and their cup runneth over, and we all wait for everything to just trickle down to us. What a dumb fucking plan that was. They weren't going to have an overflow of money. They were just going to keep stuffing it into bank accounts or stocks or overseas accounts or any number of things that they could have done. There's no such thing with these billionaires and millionaires as having too much wealth, because back then I think it was more millionaires and not so much billionaires like we have today. So my entire existence as a human on the planet Earth has been the Republican Party adamantly working against the working class. Now, people might be asking, well, what do the Democrats do? Yeah, sometimes they're ineffective, aren't they? But at least they have the American working interest in mind, and I would love to see them do better also. But they do think that unions, generally, they think that unions are a good thing, and unions are beneficial to everybody, even if you don't work in a union. Education, healthcare, things like that. But let's get back to the point of this video. Donald Trump and his stupid fucking trade wars, and how it relates to China. Because what we have here, my friends, is the classic struggle of the art of the deal versus the art of war, right? The Chinese civilization is something like 5,000 years old. I don't have that right in front of me, but you don't get to be that old of a civilization, God damn it, without doing something right. And we've got Donald Trump that had a ghostwriter for The Art of War. Wait, let me say that right. The Art of the Deal. And Donald Trump recently demonstrated to us the art of the deal. Remember the big announcement with the UK? He hyped it up for about 3 days and told us all it was going to be a huge fucking deal. Only to find out that it was nothing. It was, as a matter of fact, absolutely nothing. And to drive that point home even more, no deal's been signed. There isn't even a deal in place. Nothing fucking happened. And I am sick to death of Donald Trump lying to the American people, trying to convince us all that he did something when he did not. So this very nice person that may be Chinese that has taken the time to educate me on things going on around the world has explained some things to me that I did not understand as an American. And I want to link that back to The Art of War real quick before I forget. I've never read The Art of War. You know, I'm not much of a reader, my friends, but I do know some parts of it. And from my understanding of the parts that I know, a lot of The Art of War is let your opponent fuck themselves over. Let them make mistakes. You know, something about, I don't know the exact wording, but never interrupt your opponent while they're making mistakes, right? And that is exactly what China is doing with Donald Trump right now. Look, you wanted to put tariffs on the entire globe, and it's for a few reasons, but a lot of it has to do, in my opinion, with Donald Trump's ego. He thinks that he is going to be the bully of the world because he's a spoiled brat that's never been told no in his fucking life. He thought that was going to be consistent on the world stage while he tried to tell everybody what they were going to fucking do. Donald Trump has gotten us involved in a lot of trade wars. And as you guys know, you're watching this video, I've made a lot of Canadian friends since I've started this channel. I didn't know I was going to make Canadian friends. Thank you, Canadians. Appreciate you. And it started because I was calling out the fact that Donald Trump was absolutely getting his ass handed to him by Canada in their trade wars. First, it started off with Canada making up a fentanyl czar. That shit's gonna forever be one of the funniest things I've ever heard in my life, if I'm being honest with you. Canada said, we'll give you a fentanyl czar, Donald Trump. If they did or didn't is a whole other story. But in the event that they did, they just hired a guy to sit around and play PlayStation all day because there's not much job to do there. And that was enough to shut Donald Trump up for a fucking little while now, wasn't it? For a little while. But the point of this video is I do not believe that China is going to back down to Donald Trump at all. And it was from this nice subscriber. They told me something very substantial, something that mattered a lot and made me come to this realization. They told me that if the Chinese government makes any concessions to America at this point, then the citizens of China will riot in the streets. And my friends, I had to sit back for a few minutes and think about what that meant and why such a thing would happen. And I got this feeble redneck American brain, my friend, so it takes me a little bit of time to process these things and understand why. Because if we're really looking for global trade, world trade, things like that, we would want to make a deal, right? Well, there were already deals in place. We've been doing it for many years, but that's besides the fucking point. Donald Trump's trying to be a hero in a story he made up all by himself. But anyways, I had to sit back for a little while and think about that. Why would the people of China riot in the streets if the Chinese government, I believe they called them the Communist Party. I don't know much about China's government, but I'm learning as we go. I'm learning about Australia's recently. I'm learning about China's apparently, and I've learned a lot about Canada's. Thank you. Thank you, everybody from around the world that has been educating me. I don't get offended by that. I think it's great that you're taking the time to tell me. But I thought about the thing. Let me get back to the fucking point. I thought about this for a while. And I thought about Canada's reaction, the Canadian citizens' reaction to Donald Trump trying to be a bully to them, and how they started just ripping American products off the shelves. The people of Canada started boycotting anything made in America, and they were pissed, and they were rightfully pissed. The same reason that the people of China would be pissed. Of course they still want their jobs. Of course they still want to be able to make money. Of course they want to have some sort of future. But what did Donald Trump do? when he started putting all these tariffs on other countries. Now I'm getting it, my friends. Now I'm starting to understand. Here's what he did. This was an act of war, is what the fuck this was. Donald Trump was trying to cripple other countries' economies, and not for a good reason. It's not benefiting the American people at all. It's benefiting a few billionaires, and that's basically fucking it. But when you actively try to destroy other countries' economies for whatever reason, that would have to be looked at as an act of war at this point. And when that simple thought hit me, when I realized how mad the Canadians were, and even Mexicans, I'm a very white person, and I grew up around hateful white people. So Mexicans are real. They're real people. But when it comes out of my fucking goofy white mouth, it always feels hateful because that's the way I was fucking raised. So if anybody's listening to this from Mexico, I'm not saying Mexicans in a hateful way. It's just it feels hateful because that's how I was raised, my friends. But the people of Mexico were pissed off also. People from countries all over the world were pissed off. Why? Because Donald Trump is causing economic harm to them with the bullshit that he's doing. But the worst part about it, if you're an American, he's not doing it to our benefit fucking at all. I've tried to make this point over and over, and I guess some people just aren't listening to me out there. Most of you are. Most of you are some smart people. You understand it. Donald Trump has made no push whatsoever by him, by the federal government, by anyone to start any kind of massive plans for the infrastructure that it would take to bring mass manufacturing back to America. He hasn't done anything to help the farmers, who he's deported most of their workforce, or threatened to deport at least. He hasn't done anything to help them with labor. The point I'm trying to make is there's no actual fucking plan here besides destruction. That is it. So then when I sat back and thought about that, and it all registered in my brain, it made perfect fucking sense to me. The people of Canada would probably do the same thing. If Mark Carney came back and said, we've made concessions for America, they would probably riot in the streets. The people of China, I know that it's a very, very heavily populated country, and this is only one person speaking to me, so maybe they have a different opinion from a lot of the people in China, but it makes perfect fucking sense that they would riot in the fucking streets because Donald Trump, as far as I can tell, when you try to attack another country's economy, that in all seriousness should be considered an act of war. So the point I'm bringing up with all this is I think that China is too proud, and not in a bad way, okay? I don't mean that in any negative way. I think they're a very proud civilization from what I know as an American. I think that they do not enjoy at all trying to be bullied or pushed around. And I also think that they have the cards in this situation. Donald Trump, you do not have the cards, sir. And they are able to make new trade partners. We were something like, last I looked at it, if I remember correctly, 12% of their exports, which means we're a very small portion of the exports from China. And the fact of the matter is, they do not have to bend over for Donald Trump and do what he says. So I anticipate, because like I was saying yesterday, Donald Trump is looking for the off-ramps for his trade wars now. That's exactly what he's doing. That's why he made a big deal about the UK trade deal that isn't actually a trade deal and accomplishes absolutely fucking nothing, because the few people still remaining out there that he can lie to are going to believe it. Right now we've got Americans, maybe it's Nutlick, I'm not really sure, that are basically chasing down Chinese officials as they're going to a meeting in Switzerland. As far as I understand this, the Americans aren't even invited. They're just going to crash the party. They're just going to show up anyways and try to have this conversation with Chinese officials. I don't think China's going to make a deal. I don't think China's going to make any concessions at all. What they're going to do is make Donald Trump remove his tariffs and watch Donald Trump squirm as he tries to tell America what a great deal he has made with the Chinese people. My prediction is he will 100% lie to us. And he will make up something. The Chinese officials, the Chinese government will immediately debunk that, and tariffs will either be removed from China, or Donald Trump will try to keep up the tough guy charade, driving us even more into a recession or depression with his absolute bullshit. But none of that matters too much. It does matter. I didn't mean to say that. But the supply chain has already been broken. We're expecting shortages to hit the store shelves probably within the month, and Donald Trump is going to have to deal with the political consequences of the bullshit that he has caused. And my friends, I will be here when the midterm elections come around to keep reminding the American people of what a piece of shit he is and the damage that he has caused to us. Donald Trump is achieving absolutely nothing, and China does not have to bend to the nonsense that he says. That's it. That's the video. Love you guys. Bye now.